All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Friday, June 20th. Can you believe we're at the end of June now, and we're going to be approaching the second half of 2025. But this is your daily fix of all things Texas Longhorns right here on All in Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson. And a couple of weeks ago, we did the ultimate clickbait episode where we discussed expert analysts top 10 quarterback rankings going into the college football 2025 season. And Jake and I have decided to take that task upon ourselves. And so we have constructed and put in hours and hours and days of research. It took me maybe 30 minutes to put together. And so we will go through and talk about our favorite quarterbacks. And if there's another quarterback that pops up, we will probably have a little bit of a discussion maybe here and there. But in the comments, please interact with us. Let us know who you think the top 10 quarterbacks in college football next season is going to be, or just some of your favorites that maybe we didn't mention that can be thrown into the honorable mention category.
Or just call us idiots.
Or just say none of those guys are going to be correct. How could you not have X or Z or Y or whoever? But anyway, I don't necessarily – I fall out of love, Jake. This is a precursor. I fall out of love of the big commercial guys that just constantly fall short of expectations year after year, and then I just don't care about them anymore after their junior or senior year. And I think a lot of people – not Texas fans, but I think some people felt that way about Quinn Ewers even going in last year, of kind of that stigma. And that's kind of how I feel about the Carson Becks of the world and those types of players. And so we'll see how our lists line up together, Jake. Do you want to just go 1v1, just we name off our first and then we talk about it, then our second, and so on and so forth? Or do we want to give like 1, 2, or 3 at a time?
I think we can just go one by one, and just so we can compare spot by spot and maybe talk why we disagree.
Do we want to go 10-1 or 1-10?
Ooh, I think you got to go 10-1.
10-1 and lead it off with the finale. Okay, let's do that then, and then we'll mention some honorable mentions there at the end. All right. So Jake, my number 10, and this might surprise some people, has yet to play a down of football in the collegiate level, but the number 1 overall recruit in the country, flipping his commit to Michigan. I'm going to take Bryce Underwood as the true freshman coming in. And I don't know. I really just think that team is so good talent-wise. You need a mere morsel of talent at the quarterback position for that team to have more success than they had last year. And I think they found it in Bryce Underwood. I think he could set a little bit of the world on fire if he starts off on a good start through the first, 3-4 games of the season.
While I agree with a lot of things you said, I think that you need to put the crack pipe down, putting someone who hasn't played a single down in your top 10. I think he could end up being top 10, but putting him for the season.
So this is my ranking is going to be based on after the national championship of 2025 is over. We're going to say these were the best 10 quarterbacks in the country last year.
Okay, well then
that's where my lists are.
Mine's kind of based off what I think going into the season, kind of basing it a little off what we've seen in the past. Yeah. But also a little bit of projection. Obviously, it's a little.
Mine mixture. Is mostly projection.
I have Carson Beck at 10, lower than some people have him. But I think he's a good quarterback. I just think he's also not great. But in that Miami system in the ACC, I think he's going to put up very good numbers. I think being out of that SEC play, not having to play some of the defenses that they're having to play Georgia, having the target on their back every week will help him. It'll be up to kind of how that offensive line is.
Do you think the girl problems are going to have an effect on his play in Miami with his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, whoever he followed somebody?
One of the twins.
Now they're not even there.
Yeah, it's one of the I'm not even gonna try to remember the name, but one of the twins that played basketball there. And I mean, I feel like putting him 10 is putting him pretty low compared to where his projections have been consistently. I kind of just put him there because I didn't love, I could have put maybe put a Marcel Reed there over him.
8 through 10 was were difficult spots for me, Jake, because there are some guys that I just flat out don't like and don't believe in. And I'm like, okay, they're going to have some decent games against really bad opponents. But when it comes to the capability and the potential of actually beating a top tier opponent, they're going to come short every single time. And I don't like those guys. I don't buy into them.
And we've seen more of Carson Beck being able to perform against some top teams at times in his career, which is why I gave him the nod over maybe a Marcel Reed.
And now you're in the ACC. There's only 1 or 2 top tier teams in that conference.
Exactly. And so I think he's going to put up very, very good numbers.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what gave him, because for me, I was deciding between him and Marcel Reed. And I just gave him the nod because we've seen him perform a little bit better against better competition throughout his career.
I do think Marcel Reed, that's going to be a little foreshadowing. I think Marcel Reed is going to have a pretty good jump in Elko's system next year. But again, my number 9, Jake, I'm going to go Dante Moore, the sophomore transfer from UCLA, is going to be the starting quarterback at Oregon. And I just think that system, I think it's the Dan Lanning system. I think it's the athletes and the talent around him is going to elevate his play. Now, do I think that he's possibly the talent caliber of a Nico Emiliava? Yeah, I kind of think he might fall kind of in that category, but I also think he's going to have a Dan Lanning and a Oregon recruiting class and talent portal around him to elevate his play. I think we'll see some pretty big time highlights and big time stat games from him. Again, I think he's a player who, if he's going to have to go head to head against Ohio State or something along those lines, I think they'll come short and lose those games. But I do think, again, Oregon's not going anywhere. They're going to be a 9 to 10 win team this year.
Yeah. I have Rocco Beck at 9 from Iowa State. Maybe like my first kind of surprise. He's kind of been an under the radar, really good college football quarterback. And I think he goes under the radar because he plays for Iowa State. Obviously they had Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy never looked like this. I mean, there's a reason he was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft versus being, higher up in the draft. But I think Rocco Beck is kind of a big reason why Iowa State was as good as they were last year. Their season kind of gets lost because of what Arizona State did to them. And because the wheels fell off a little bit towards the end, but if you look at his numbers, they were really good. And he's kind of got that gritty style to him, almost like a Diago Pavia a little bit, maybe a little bit better of a passer than Pavia, but he reminds me of him a little bit.
What's your take on Matt Campbell, Jake?
I mean, I think what he's done at Iowa State speaks for itself.
I think that's about as much as you can do at Iowa State.
Especially doing what he's doing there in the NIL era. Still, I think he does more with less. Every single year of his career, he does more with less. He gets passed up from big jobs because they're like, well, they lose in the Big 12 Well, they wouldn't be in the Big 12 championship game if he wasn't there.
He's also passed up on jobs while the iron was hot, and he passed up and said, look, I'm going to stay at Iowa State and stay true to the recruits that I brought here. I think he kind of likes being at Iowa State, but I don't think it's a place where you're ever going to see huge success. You might see Iowa State make a playoff appearance. I don't think you'll ever see Iowa State make a semifinal or even a final appearance.
I mean, a semifinal, you could only have to win one game. It's not impossible, but I don't think Iowa State's ever going to win a national title in football or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, he could take him to the playoffs. And if you go, well, he doesn't win the big game. Well, he's at Iowa State. They're not beating a Georgia. They're not beating an Alabama when they're up top, or Texas right now with where they are. And so But yeah, I think Matt Campbell's a hell of a coach that does a lot more with a lot less.
I like him as well. Jake, my number 8, Haynes King, Georgia Tech. He is a redshirt senior. We saw what he did last year against Georgia, and really what he did with that Georgia Tech team, transfer from Texas A&M a couple years back. I think he's just going to be one of those wily vets now that knows the game of college football. He's going to know the Georgia Tech system. He's been in college football. He's played plenty of games now to where he is in a winnable conference, the ACC, yet again. And hey, if Georgia Tech is in that 3-4 spot in the ACC, don't be surprised that they might be a 9-win team this upcoming year. I think that they kind of fall within that 8-9 win category.
I like their value on the betting odds of winning that ACC. When you talk about just a value perspective, they didn't have great odds. I think they're like 5th or 6th on there. I think they could make it to the ACC title.
Yeah. I mean, because you got to beat out what? SMU, Miami, Clemson. You're not going to beat out Clemson.
I think Clemson is just a surefire in the ACC title.
So you're not going to beat out Clemson to get in there, but you could play Clemson.
You play Clemson, and then if you beat them in just one game, which can happen.
Or if you go in undefeated and you lose one game, maybe you're a 12 seed.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech is going to be a really good team next year. I've talked about how I like what they're building.
Yeah, I haven't seen their schedule, but I'd like to see it. I can't imagine it being overly difficult being in the ACC, though.
The most difficult thing is they have to play Georgia in the non-conference, which obviously that was one of the games of the year last year.
Yeah.
My 8 is Dante Moore for Morgan, kind of for all the things you said. I think he's got a lot of talent. And then you combine him with the Dan Lanning system. It's hard to see him not putting up really big numbers when you get to the end of the season. I have a hard time seeing Oregon not having a quarterback that has good numbers just ever at this point.
Yeah, they just rotate them out, whether they're transfers or they recruit them. All right, number 7, another transfer, Jake. So I don't know. Maybe I have a bias against transfers and guys who have stayed in the same system for the last 3-4 years. But this is the last transfer on my list. And it's the transfer to OU, John Mateer from Washington State. One of the biggest transfers in the transfer portal this last season, along with a Carlson Beck. But again, I think I've got some sort of bias against transfers. I'm not 100% sure, but I think John Mateer, I've got him in my bottom 5. I just don't think Brent Venables and the talent at OU is going to provide Mateer throwing it 70 times a game like he was at Washington State. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to be doing that. They're also going to be playing SEC competition. I think he takes a step down in what we see as like this like top yards in college football. He's not going to be that again this year. Like he's not going to be the leader in yards gained on offense like he was at Washington State at Oklahoma. So I think he takes a little bit of a step down. With that all being said, I think Oklahoma's offense is now elevated 2 to 3 notches than it was last year because of his play and because of
probably more than that. If we're being honest,
yeah, I mean they will not average in the teens this year on offense in terms of scoring. They're going to be well into the 20s, mid to upper 20s per game in terms of points on offense. So, and that'll all be because of his efficiency at the quarterback position.
If their schedule wasn't such a death row, they would probably be one of the dark horses to have a big year, just in all honesty. But their schedule is what it is.
Here's at the end of the day, it's like Oregon. It's still Oklahoma. They will always be capable of winning 10 games in a season, always.
Yeah, I have Haynes King at 7, so kind of you had Haynes King 8, Dante Moore 9. I have Moore 9 or 8, Haynes King 7. Watching that Georgia game, Haynes King just earned so much respect from me. And I watched the early season game against Florida State. He is just a dog. And that's another guy that A&M failed by not giving him just any time at all to develop and become what he has become at Georgia Tech. I just love his style of play. He does whatever it takes to win. He is just beat up to hell after every game because he's going to take on contact. He's going to put himself in.
He is very similar to a Sam Ehlinger and how he was used at Texas, in my opinion. I mean, I will always love Sam Ehlinger. Now, I think Sam Ehlinger may be a better college football player than Haynes King overall, but the heart and the passion and the buy-in that he has within that locker room, very similar in terms of his leadership to me.
Yeah, and this is a college QB list, not projecting them as pros.
Right.
Haynes King, I don't think projects to be a great pro, but he is a damn good college quarterback.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. I completely agree. He's obviously on my list for a reason. I'm going to go number 6, a guy who I haven't seen on a ton of lists, which I thought was strange because I thought last year as an underclassman, I thought that, he was getting a lot of credit for their success at SMU, but Kevin Jennings, the redshirt junior, coming back after leading SMU to a playoff spot and their first year in the ACC, going undefeated or having one loss. No, wait, were they undefeated going into that ACC championship game? And then they lost to Clemson, and that was their one loss.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think that he shouldn't be a top quarterback in the country this year after the season that he had last year. I think his progression is only going to get better, and that SMU program has only gotten better.
Yeah, no reason other than if I just watched him throw the football against Penn State. That's kind of the reason he's not on my list. Is in my honorable mention kind of towards the end. I just don't like watching him throw the football. I watched a couple games where he came in and I was like,
and it is a preference in terms of skill set, but in college football, you don't have to be a great passer to be a great quarterback.
No, until you're in big games. And fortunately in the ACC, you can kind of get away with that with SMU's schedule. So he could put up numbers that could say that, but
it is also SMU at the end of the day. It's the same thing.
I think putting him over John Mateer is wild when you're just talking about a quarterback in college.
This is a projected list of where I think the season's going to be at the end of the season next year. When the season's all said and done, and we're going to say, wow, Kevin Jennings put up better numbers and a better season than John Mateer. That's I think
we need to start drug testing on this podcast. My 6 is again, I'm not projecting based off end of year. So if I did that, I would have this guy higher for sure, but I have Arch Manning here. I just felt like putting him in that 4 to 6 range was the most appropriate. And I went towards the bottom because I typically try to sway my bias almost the other way. I'm just putting him there because there is less tape. There is less of a proven commodity when it comes to just quantity of snaps. And I think that plays into things in a preseason list. Now, again, I kind of did my list differently than you did it. As far as if I was projecting, I would have him top 3 probably. But as far as just going into the season, I think trying to be as fair about it, or maybe more fair about it than I even should be. This is where I ended up putting him just based off kind of, you're going to see it. All the guys kind of ahead of him have just had more snaps on the football field and have maybe proven themselves a little bit more at the college level already.
And I think that's fair. Number 5, Jake, I've got Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, the redshirt senior. He showed flashes and stretches of the season last year where he looked like, wow, maybe this is a Heisman caliber type guy. And then he would turn it around and do the exact opposite. I'm like, ooh, gross, stinky, nasty, poo-poo quarterback. This is horrible play. I don't know what you're going to get. I would think a redshirt senior, and you're under Brian Kelly's system for another season. I think surely it kind of starts getting put together a little bit more. I would hope so. I would think so. I think LSU should be. They've been a very odd program really ever since winning that national championship. They should be a playoff team this year, in my opinion. I don't know if that's kind of the consensus, but in my opinion, with a quarterback like Garrett Nussmeier, they should be fighting for a lower seed in the playoff system, an 11 or a 12 seed, especially with it being based solely on where you're ranked at the end of the year now. But yeah, I think Garrett Nussmeier, again, there were stretches where I really, really enjoyed watching him play. And then there were other stretches where I'm just like, this is disgusting. Like, how people are even considering him to be a Heisman caliber quarterback is beyond me. And I'm hoping we get I'm actually hoping we get a little bit more Heisman caliber play out of him this year.
Yeah, especially since Texas doesn't play them.
Yeah, sure.
And
Yeah. He might help us out a little bit.
The first half of the A&M game against what he did in the second half, he looked really
100%.
solid in the first half, and then in the second half he looked lost. Now
In that
that's
one
not all
game.
on him. They need to have a little bit. His numbers were really good last year, but they also just did not have a great run game. They didn't have a great offensive line. They had a good offensive line. Obviously, they they did have some really good tackles, but the offensive line as a whole wasn't maybe what a lot of people thought it would be. And then their defense was not very good. Again, they weren't as bad as the year before, but they still were not very good.
Yeah.
My 5 will be this is where I ended up putting John Mateer. Just based off, I mean, I went and watched some of his Washington State film, and there is some moments of brilliance. I mean, just looking off safeties, making some throws that not some anticipation throws, throwing guys open, things that aren't just things that are NFL level traits.
Yeah.
And those were the things that really impressed me, but he also had some stinkers against good competition. And then obviously one that if you go to on Twitter, any Texas fan is just going to only talk about the Wyoming game, which is funny because Wyoming just almost took down Texas. A couple years ago.
Wyoming is not a bad football program. They're not a
they weren't last year. They weren't very good, but still, I do think Mateer is going to make OU a better than competent offense. And last year they were not even close to being competent.
Right.
And if OU's defense is anything like it was last year, that it is going to be a different caliber of football team with him. I don't think they have a shot at playoffs purely because their schedule. I mean, if Texas had their schedule, I would not be confident about Texas making the playoffs.
It's a tough schedule. And, but any Texas fan thinking that this is going to be a 49-0 or a 43-3 type game, think again. Now, I think with the two defenses, I think this game actually might be a little bit more low scoring. In the Texas OU game. I mean, I could see it kind of being in the 20s. So, but I do think both teams, it's going to be a much closer game this year. I will not be nearly as confident going into this OU game as I was last year, where I was also predicting 49-0 for another year. But anyway, my next pick. Oh yeah, we're at number 4. All right. Now here's where I've got Arch Manning, Jake. Number 4. People were probably like, man, is he even going to have him in the list? Absolutely. I almost considered putting him top 3, and it wasn't going to be 3 or 2. I still have my fandom bias and my stupid fan mode where I'm just like, yeah, he's going to win Heisman. We're going to win a national championship, and he's going to be the best quarterback in college football. Of course, I'm going to have him number 1. That still goes through my mind, just so people know. But I have him at number 4. I think he's going to have a really good year, Jake. I'm extremely excited about him. And in Sark's system, he's one of the most, aside from Colt McCoy going from his junior to senior year, I don't know if I've ever been more confident in a Texas quarterback coming in as a starter and just me being like, we don't have to worry about quarterback whatsoever. And that's saying something with Quinn Ewers and Sam Ehlinger coming before him. I'm more confident with Arch Manning taking over than I was with those two guys at the helm as well in terms of running this offense.
Yeah, I feel the same way at the end of the day. I have no worries about quarterback position with Texas. My worries are in other positions. The only thing I worry about is health.
Yeah.
I would love for Texas to finally get a season with Sarkisian where the quarterback stays healthy the whole season. Not talked about enough that the quarterback health luck under Sarkisian
great point
has been awful, and yet they've still found ways to fight through it. And I think it's a very underrated aspect because let's not forget he was playing with a torn oblique the whole season as well. That not a talked about point that Sarkisian and the roster and the whole coaching staff as a whole has overcome every single year under his tutelage. Obviously, other than the first year, we forget that year exists, though. My 4 is going to be DJ Lagway, and DJ Lagway, to be clear, he has potential to be number 1. Mm-hmm. He is that level of talent. He showed that last year. I think Florida was playing damn near at a playoff level team at the end of the year last year. Just the quality of football they were playing. I know people don't like that because you talk about what I'm not saying they were a playoff team. They weren't. They had you can't just put a team in the playoff because of how they look at the end of the year. But as far as just caliber of team that's playing on the field towards the end of the year, they look like that caliber of team. And like we talked about already, and we'll talk about plenty more this summer, that game in Florida is one of the games we have circled on the Texas schedule.
There's a reason why they kept Billy Napier after fans and donors and sponsors wanted him fired from Florida, and the athletic department said, we'll run it one more year. There's a reason why they kept Billy Napier. And
DJ Lagway said he wanted Napier to stay.
And a big reason is DJ Lagway, huge reason. Another reason is what Jake just said. Go watch their Miami game week 1 and then go watch their last game of the season and tell me there's not a significant difference in the type of play of football that they were playing.
And at the start of the season, everyone talked about how they were one of the youngest teams in the country, and that was going to be really hard for them with how the start of their schedule was to win many games and even make a bowl game, which obviously that all proved to be true. But also what proved to be true was there was clear improvement. Yeah. And like you said, go watch that Miami game, then go flip on the film against Ole Miss. It's a different team. And I mean, Texas did what they did, but they weren't playing with DJ Lagway. Yeah. They were playing with a walk-on
third stringer from Yale or something like that.
Yeah, or Harvard or one of those schools. And it wasn't Fitzpatrick. So
it was not Fitzpatrick.
But yeah, I am very, very high on DJ Lagway. I think he could be. You'll notice, so I have him at 4. My 3 through 1 are all ahead of him just purely because of more experience and already showing it. Yeah. Like I said, as far as boom potential, DJ Lagway could win the Heisman. Just like Arch, his boom potential could be number 1.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And my number 3 is DJ Lagway. So you and I, we could continue to glaze him over and over again, but I think we should just move on before people just start.
It's good not to put bad clips out there for people to pull when they play Florida. I expect DJ Lagway to be a tough competition. And then 3, we've already talked about him through yours, so I won't go into too much detail. I have Garrett Nussmeier here, maybe a little higher than some people like him. He had really good numbers last year. He didn't have a great team, and I just expect a gigantic bump in his play. This is where I do project just a little bit of just going, okay, he proved he was a really good college quarterback last year. Now he's going into his senior year. LSU always seems to get a big bump from their quarterbacks going into their last year. And so I think Nussmeier, putting him at 3 is pretty reasonable. I definitely think it probably ends around that range.
I mean, imagine where we would have had Joe Burrow from 2018 to 2019 on our list. Probably.
Yeah, never would have imagined him he would have been bottom of a top 10 list.
He would have been bottom of the top 10 list, if even making a top 10 list. And he proved to be probably the best college quarterback to ever play the game, I would think, that senior year.
Best single season.
Best college best college football season. All of a sudden I got all this software update stuff that just popped up on my laptop, threw me off.
The best offense that I don't think it can be debated. It is the best college football offense in the history of the game.
I'm not going to argue that.
Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase,
Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a hell of a running back.
I mean, just looking at the NFL production of those guys, it's like, that you could not sign those 3 guys and you'd be over the cap in the NFL. Like
you couldn't even have those 3 guys. You could not even have those 3 guys on the same roster unless they all took drastic pay cuts.
Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow being on the same roster alone is insane.
And for the cheapest organization in all of sports with the Bengals,
carried them to a Super Bowl to make them look like they're not as bad of an organization as they are.
And they are a bad organization. All right. Jake, I've also got at number 2, I've got Lenoris Sellers. The redshirt sophomore from South Carolina, really, really high on this kid. It really where it started was the LSU game for me last year. It was that noon LSU game where I thought South Carolina got absolutely just ripped off by the officials at the end of that game, where South Carolina should have beaten LSU, did beat LSU, and then the officials changed the game. And so I think Lenore Sellers, he continually put on big time performances against big time teams and big time prime time moments. And that's what I love to see. Anytime there was a big time game on for South Carolina, a must win game, and just the way that they were playing at the end of the year, it was led by the quarterback. And so, yeah, the way A&M couldn't tackle him, and he was just breaking off every tackle, and he just looked like he had baby oil dripped all over him while he was breaking and slipping through tacklers. Yeah, Lenore Sellers is one of my favorites to win the Heisman this year. I'm a really big advocate on Lenore Sellers, and if he takes a dive this year, a sophomore slump type of season, I'd be more surprised by that than I would be probably by anything else that happens this season.
Yeah, I also have Lenore Sellers at 2 for everything you kind of said. I mean, even games where they didn't score a lot of points, like I was like, well, they beat Clemson, but it was 17-14. That was not because of their offense. But you go look at that game and you're like, Lenore Sellers was 13 of 21, 164 yards, 1 pick, no touchdowns. Not great passing stats. He picked everything up with his feet, though. 16 carries, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. So even when the arm wasn't there, he found ways. And that dual threat is big.
You can go back and look at some of Vince Young's numbers during games, and the passing numbers weren't always great, but the rushing numbers picked up and made up for the lack of passing.
Yeah, but I mean, I am very high on I am excited to play as South Carolina in college football just because it's going to be fun to use him.
Well, now they've got the new juke in the backfield for quarterbacks. You can scramble around in the backfield and still juke around. I'm like, oh yeah, Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers, DJ Lagway, they're about to be so OP in the new college football game. It's going to be ridiculous.
Kind of like they are in real life.
Yeah, very much like they are in real life.
But yeah, Lenore Sellers he's another Heisman potential quarterback, I think, without a doubt.
And should be. If you're one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the country, you're probably going to be in New York or wherever you are, where they host the Heisman nowadays. Number 1, Jake, you and I, we both have the same guy at number 1, so we can both kind of just talk about it. Grand finale.
Everyone knows who it is.
Yeah, Cade Klubnik from at Clemson. I think Jake, I was higher on Klubnik going into that Texas game, but I think he earned your respect after that Texas game in the playoffs last year. Clemson, a very young team last year. The fact that they were able to win the ACC the way they did, struggling at the beginning of the year, not looking as great. They're a team that really started playing their best football, and now they're probably going to be preseason number 1. If not number 1, they might be preseason number 3 at the very lowest going into the top 25 polls to start the year off. And it's all because of what Cade Klubnik can bring to a football team. And he'll likely be maybe a number 1 overall pick in the draft next year.
Yeah, it's not that I wasn't even high on Klubnik going into it. I just wasn't high on the Clemson team because I looked at their team and when Klubnik can't play hero ball, it doesn't work out well. I was like, no one can play hero ball against this Texas defense. And he proved me wrong because he was carrying that team.
What's funny is that it's not hero ball. It's just Cade Klubnik ball.
Yeah. And I mean, what he did, he made that game stressful because he made it look pretty easy against a defense that quite literally no other quarterback could figure out. Not even Will Howard figured out that defense. The Ohio State offense had their worst game of the playoffs against Texas by far. But Clemson was the one offense that just ripped apart Texas for a lot of that game. I think had even maybe outgained the Texas offense in that game. But yeah, especially when you consider the team around them wasn't as good last year as they will be this year. I think most people are going to have Cade Klubnik number 1, in part because of that performance in Austin to close the season that, yes, was a loss, but also ripped apart what was the best defense in the country, and really I mean, other than maybe Ohio State and Texas were the 1A, 1B of college football defenses last year. And the only quarterback that ever beat up the Texas defense was Cade Klubnik. So how can you not have him number one when he's, by far the biggest name returning? You would think going into last season, you would have thought it'd been Carson Beck if he was coming back. Instead, you don't even have Carson Beck on your list. I have him on the book end of my list, and I have Klubnik, and we both have Klubnik number one.
It's amazing what one season can do. Other guys we don't have on our list, Jake, we both don't have Drew Ayler or Sam Levitt from Arizona State.
Yeah, the Levitt is almost out of spite at this point, a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because people will be like, oh, he was so good against and I'm like, he was gutsy against Texas. I wouldn't say he was good.
No, I wouldn't say he was good either.
I would say he was
part
of the problem for them.
I would say that there was one specific player that was more of a problem for Texas than Sam Levitt was, and that was number 4, Cam Skattebo. I would say he probably caused Texas more fits than Sam Levitt. Sam Levitt did a good job of escaping, extending the play, and drawing the play out, and there would be holding penalties or whatever on the Texas defense, or he would just he'd find a receiver after about 7 seconds of scrambling around, extending the play, and he'd find somebody open. And yeah, I know that's a quarterback making a play, absolutely, but it wasn't anything that he was the reason why Texas was in the position or Arizona State was in the position that they were in that game at the end of the game.
No, I mean, he was when you talk, I mean, rushing wise, he had 13 carries for 60 yards. That's solid. And that was where he was impressive against Texas, but passing wise, he was not good.
No,
he was 24 46 with 222 yards and a pick. And a lot of that wasn't there I believe there was Skattebo was their leader in receivers. He had 8 receptions, 99 yards.
Yeah.
Their second leading receiver was Malik McClain, who had 1 catch for 42 yards.
And that came from Cam Skattebo, by the way.
So, roughly half of his yards were just dump offs to Skattebo. Yeah. I mean, I think he's a good college quarterback, but I think he got way overblown just because Arizona State made it a game against Texas when if Cam Skattebo didn't exist, that game would have been a complete and utter blowout.
Well, that game probably would have been against like Boise State or somebody, to be honest with you. It would have never been. Arizona State would have never made the playoff. That's true,
but if Cam Skattebo didn't exist for just that one game,
Texas
wins it by 30, like it looked like they should have to open the game, to be fair. Still.
Drew Ayler, Jake. This is a guy who I think you and I both have just kind of stopped believing in, maybe. Was never really all that impressed with him last year. I think his only real impressive game was in that Big Ten championship, which they lost against Oregon. But then we saw how bad Oregon's defense was playing at that time, getting blown out by Ohio State in the second round. So, I don't know. I just never felt like he took over any type of game. And again, they've got 2 really, really good running backs. The only other running backs that are probably going to compete with Texas in terms of the best running back duo in the league. But yeah, I maybe just stopped believing in Drew Ayler of thinking that he's going to be at some elite level, or maybe it's just the Penn State effect with James Franklin, where I'm like, all right, he's like any other Penn State quarterback that we've seen come and go over the last 10 years.
See, I can honestly say I never started to believe in him. And I just think he stinks. And I've always thought he stinks. Yeah. I've never gotten the hype around him when I watch him play, especially play a good team. He is the reason Penn State was not in the national championship. He lost them that game. That was some of the most putrid quarterback play I've ever seen. He ended that game, I think it was like 12 of 24 with a pick and like a little bit over 100 yards. And he wasn't impressive other than, most of his yards came against bad teams. And it was a lot off of play action. And when you are a run first team and you are going off play action, I expect your completion percentage to be pretty high. Especially, the Boise State game, I just pulled that up. People talked about he had 3 touchdown passes. He was 13 of 25 with 171 yards.
No, that's Jalen Hurts numbers right there.
Yeah, you're gonna I love it. I love it. I love it. But yeah, you're going to get, I mean, against SMU, 13 to 22, 127 yards. He didn't go over 200 yards in a single playoff game, and they made the semifinals because their team was actually really good.
Yeah.
If they had a legit core, if they had Lenore Sellers on their team, they might have won the national title last year.
Yeah.
But he held them back in every big game. They lost their game to Ohio State 20 to 13. Why? Because Drew Aller stunk. 12 of 20, a pick, 140 yards.
Jake, if they have Haynes King as their quarterback, they probably play in the national championship. I don't know if they
without
beat
a
Ohio
doubt, which
State.
is why, I mean, he wasn't even a thought to be on my list at any point.
That's also another or not a requirement, but that's also another factor that I did put in my brain when making this list of, all right, if I swap these quarterbacks out, which team is better in this situation with this quarterback instead of that quarterback? The only one that's probably a little sketchy on my part, and this might just be a little OU hatred, is Kevin Jennings over John Mateer.
Yeah, that's like crack pipe.
That
level.
might be just a little bit of burnt orange blood in me, and I really hate OU with a deep passion. And so, that might be a bias that's coming through. I don't know, but I do have Mateer on my list. So there's that, OU fans. I gave you something. Another guy we don't have on our list, Jake, that we both mentioned is Marcel Reed. I think he's an extremely interesting prospect going into this year. Elko year 2, Reed year 2. You're going to get your running back, Le'Veon Moss, back healthy. What do we think about A&M in general, but what do we think about Marcel Reed? Surely he's QB1 for the whole year. Surely you're not going to flip-flop back and forth. And I mean, I don't know at this point, but surely he's the guy.
You never know with A&M. I've already seen some of their fans who were mad, with the way they ended the season, talk about some freshmen. You never know with that team. Anytime you think, like, you thought, oh, Connor Wigman's the quarterback. And no, they just didn't even. Soon as he had a remotely bad game, it was like, oh, you suck. You're out.
And I'll give you this, though. I will give them this. Marcel Reed did provide a spark and an energizer like feel of the team rallying behind him that Connor Wigman did not possess.
Yes. Connor Wigman also was the quarterback for their biggest win of the season,
also
which
true.
was absolutely annihilating Missouri. And it was a lot on the back of Connor Wigman having a great performance. So I mean, yeah, he gave him a little bit of a spark, but they lost all. I mean, he gave him a little bit of a spark in some of the worst teams they played. Other than LSU, that was their biggest win with Reed. I think the Mizzou win was probably a bigger win than LSU at the end of the day. Just because LSU was such a flawed football team.
Jake, do you have A&M schedule up by chance?
I mean, it's the same schedule as last year. Just
no, not
just
for this
reverse.
year. For last year.
I'm pulling it up right now.
I'd like to see what Marcel Reed's record was as a starter, and I'm sure that can just be a simple Google search or something. But like the games that he won as a starter, played the whole game. I'm curious if he didn't lose more or just the same amount as he won as the starter, because I know Wingman was responsible for at least 3 or 4 wins last year.
Yeah, I mean, Wigman, he started against Notre Dame, they lost. Started against McNeese, they won. I don't know. I can't. Was Wigman out against Florida? I think he was out against Florida. They won the Florida game. They beat Bowling Green in a very close one with Marcel Reed. That was a 26-20 game.
Yeah.
They beat Arkansas in a very close game with Marcel Reed. That was also, Reed didn't play that well. He kind of got benched in a way where Wigman then came back.
That's right.
And then Wigman. So Reed in those 3 wins I just mentioned, Florida, Bowling Green, Arkansas, his best game was against Florida with 178 yards passing. Then Wigman comes in, throws for 276 against Missouri. They win 41-10. Wigman throws for 217 against Mississippi State. They win. Wigman gets pulled against LSU. Reed comes in, mainly does work on the ground because he ended that game. They won 38-23. Reed ended with 70. And I think they ran the football the entire second half. Like, I don't think they threw it
Yeah,
in the second half. It was something.
It was pretty crazy.
Reed was 2-2 with 70 yards because they just refused to. I mean, they ran the ball 49 times.
Yeah.
In that game, and Marcel Reed did provide a spark with his run game. He had 3 touchdowns on the ground, but not necessarily throwing. And an LSU defense that wasn't that good. Got blown out to South Carolina, beat New Mexico State, lost to Auburn, lost to Texas, lost to USC. So he had a winning record. But if you take out the non-conference, Bowling Green and New Mexico State, he would have ended, if you don't take the LSU game, let's count it to be friendly just because they would have lost that game with Wigman with how he was playing.
Yeah.
They would be 1 win, 2 win, 2-4.
2-4 with
so about
Reed.
4, I think 4-4, and that's counting a game he didn't technically start.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, he was not good against Texas.
As a total, counting the LSU game, which he did not start, but total wins, losses, counting the LSU game, he was 5-4.
Yeah. And that's counting, some games against teams that you're just, actually it's A&M, so they could lose to McNeese State. They are capable as a program.
No, you lose to Appalachian State, you're always capable. But that was kind of one thing that I was like, sure, he kind of provides the spark, but is he winning games when you need him to win? And the answer really to that is no. It's kind of a crapshoot. It's kind of honestly where A&M has always been with their quarterbacks, to be honest with you. I
got high on Wigman last year and I don't like getting high on a quarterback from an A&M or an OU, to be very clear. I hate both of them. And I was just like, I almost put Marcel Reed 10. I was like, God, he just did not end the year good.
Yeah.
From a he's got a huge boom bust potential. He could be he could end up being in the top half of this list at the end of the year. I do think he has that type of potential. But at the same time, I feel like you got to see it against the top competition. And so that's why I left him off the list. I will say he's the first on my honorable mention. Not that my honorable mention is in order, but he was the one I was considering swapping with Beck. I put Beck there just because I feel like it's a little bit more of a proven commodity.
I've got Maddox Madsen at Boise State, Jake. I think he actually is poised to have a pretty good year. In fact, I would think that Boise State is going to be the favorite what is it? The G5 team that comes into the playoffs. Again, I would think that Boise State would kind of be the favorite, maybe in New Mexico. I don't know really where that program, or Las Vegas, sorry. I don't know where that program is anymore with all the transfer portal stuff. I don't really keep up with off-season stuff for New Mexico. But they were a really fun team that competed with Boise State within that Mountain West Conference. Guy that you did not have, or that neither of us had on our list, but you put in the honorable mentions, which I agree with. Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt could possibly have a much better year at Vandy in his second season there with the team.
Yeah, I think he's really setting himself up for failure right now, though, on his little press tour. I don't know if you've seen that at all.
I haven't seen
He's just talking trash about everyone else, and I'm like,
yeah,
that might not be a great idea to talk trash about Alabama and Texas, and
it won't end well. No, that's poor.
But
poor
I think
judgment.
he's absolutely deserving of being honorable mention. I think if someone had his top 10 list, I wouldn't laugh at them by any means, just because if you put Vanderbilt on the map, you're
as long as it was 10.
Well,
9.
yeah, if you have them top 6 or something, I will laugh at you at that point. But what he did at Vanderbilt was still really impressive last year. Definitely deserving of at least being mentioned. I do have Kevin Jennings on my honorable mention, but he was not a thought of being in my top 10. I was looking at your list as I was entering mine in, and I saw Kevin Jennings, and I was like, is that a typo?
I know we're running.
That's the one we had the biggest disagreement on.
Oh yeah, and that's fine. I'm not going to argue with it. That's perfectly fine with me. one guy that I've always kind of had a man crush on, but last year, boy, did he really just take a downturn. And at KU, Jalen Daniels, Jake, he's coming back again. It feels like he's a 6-7 year senior now. But Jalen Daniels, I think, could potentially be a really good college quarterback. He's shown flashes of it, has never really put together a full season of it. Devin Neal carried the load for KU whenever they finally kind of got their act together last season and ended their season on like a 5-game win streak. But what's your take on Jalen Daniels now?
He was a name I was tossing around going, oh, let's go. What did he do? I was like, I remember he wasn't very good last year, but how bad was he? And he was bad.
It was not
he
great.
He's not deserving of being on any top 10 list. He does have really good potential, but man, and last year they didn't have their OC. He had left for Penn State. And I think that hurt a lot. I know he was playing some of the year hurt. But he was horrible last year. He didn't even have a good game against Linwood to start the season, which was played in my neck of the woods where the pro soccer team in Kansas City plays.
Nice.
He was 9 of 15 with a touchdown and a pick against Linwood.
How's that KU stadium coming along? Aren't they getting a new stadium?
Oh, it's done. It's the ugliest stadium in college football.
Really?
Yeah, look it up when we get off the podcast. It is.
I knew they were getting a new stadium. They
didn't get it's not a new stadium. They renovated the old one.
Oh, okay.
It is bigger, but it looks.
That's probably what they need. They probably needed to tear the old one down.
They needed to just build an entire new stadium.
That's the problem. Yeah.
I haven't seen it in person. Maybe it doesn't look as bad in person as it does.
But you've seen. Oh, that's bad.
On like real picture. I've seen real pictures of it. The mock-ups. I remember seeing the mock-ups. I was like, that looks not good.
Really? I kind of remember seeing the mock-ups and thinking, well, hey, it's KU. Good for them. Like,
good for them. They have a bigger stadium that will be empty, but I was not impressed by the
oh man, I'll have to
you can look it up. Maybe you'll think differently than I did.
I doubt it.
But he just stunk way too much last year to even consider. I mean, he had 14 touchdowns, 12 picks.
And I think 12 of those picks came within the first 6 weeks of the season, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, let's see, 4, 6, 8 of them came in the first 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So
very, very bad first 5-game, 6-game stretch for KU. And then they turned it around.
He did play better in the back half of the season for sure. I mean, he had some Iowa State, who they won that game, by the way. Yeah. KU did. He was only 12 of 24, but he had 295 yards.
Yeah, KU beat Iowa State, Colorado. I mean, they beat the top dogs in the Big 12 whenever at the end of the year.
Yeah, and Jalen Daniels had some really good. So he's definitely one who could end up on this list at the end of the year. Yeah. But putting him there you just can't do it with the body of work of stats from last year. You can't just base it off the end of the year. Yeah. When he had some just horrible stretches.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right, Jake. Well, I knew I had a feeling this episode was going to take much longer than we anticipated it being, just because you and I are way too opinionated on this topic. But almost an hour in, we're going to cut it off there. And hey, if we can have summer episodes go this long, I think we're doing something right. Now, yes, that summer episode revolved around football, and that's no surprise that we got into a football conversation that lasted about an hour. But that's Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. An extra long episode for your Friday going into your weekend. You know, listen to half of it on Friday, the other half on Saturday, or just keep us on all day long. Whatever floats your boat, we're there for you each and every single day to give you your daily fix of all things Texas Longhorns right here on All In Horns. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All In Sports Network. We love sports.